and welcome back to Shock Talk. I kind of missed you. I took a week off, and I come back, and we have a very special guest with us today, Mr. Justin Park, fresh off the Baja 500, and he's got a ton of stories to share with us today, so I'm just going to let him kind of introduce himself a little bit and dig in with the stories, and we'll keep them coming.
One of the longest sponsored Bilstein racers.
Yes,
that we have.
it's actually one of our oldest sponsored racers.
Yeah, you know, when you grow up seeing blue and yellow on your family's vehicles here in Southern California, it really sticks. You have good times out there, and, you know, good times are out there, and you can always have them with Bilstein shocks. It's been a great ride ever since I was a kid, and still today it's amazing. It's only gotten better over the years. The technologies have improved. The machining tools, everything that's here on site, all the CNC stuff, it's amazing what's gone down here in the last decade or two.
Yeah, and we're interested to hear about your high school truck. I hear there's a story behind this, so...
Yeah, that's like coming into today. I wanted...
Yes.
I heard something, maybe it was a rumor, I didn't know if it was true, but I wanted to ask that.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories about trucks, and, you know, we all go to school, and growing up in Southern California, we're close to a lot of things like the desert, the beach, and the mountains. So there's a lot of adventures to be had, but you got to have a cab or something to put all your equipment in and take your buddies with you every time. So, you know, we started riding BMX bikes as kids out here in Southern California. It was real hot. Skateboarding, too, back in the 80s was big, and... you know, sure enough, eventually went to high school and, you know, needed a truck to go surfing. And we were doing some professional surfing and skateboarding here in town locally and at the skate parks. You know, we got a lot of friends in those industries here in town still today. But I took a lot of that same stuff, and I had a truck, and I knew it's possible. There's a lot of desert out here. And eventually I got a dirt bike just like my buddies. We had a contest to see who could get a dirt bike the fastest with the, you know, $0 entry kind of thing, and who could get the best at the least and do the biggest air back in the sand dunes once we got one. So that was super fun, but, you know, it's a little tough with the job, and like they always say, with age comes a cage. So I had this really cool truck that I financed my first ever truck from Ford from here off a lot. It was couple years used for me, but was still bright and shiny, had a forest green to it, and believe it or not, the back of the firewall is still forest green on the race truck.
So that high school truck is your race truck?
That is the race truck. We have done so many modifications. We've been through mid-travel, semi-travel kits, you name it, we've had it on there.
I remember when it was just spindles.
Yeah. It's been just a spindle kit. It's been just an upper arm kit. We've had... you know, some really nice shocks that we've had produced here to be able to fit into that setup, and we've raced it literally bone stock with barely a roll cage in it. You know, just punched out the windshield and showed up at a race one day with barely seatbelts in the thing.
I think when I first met you, you had a spindle kit with an A-arm, and you had a 2.5-inch shock through the frame.
It was a Camberg 5.5 kit.
Yeah.
Didn't you have dual shocks right up through the A-arm?
Yeah, we
like 5125s or something.
It was a coil spring frame, so it was a little difficult to work with versus
it was going
the
straight
other
up
one.
through the hole in the pocket.
So
of one shock.
Yeah, we punched the hole where the shock used to mount at the top, and we you know, carved it out and actually put a taller shock all the way up on a shock tower, and kept the coil spring bucket on there and the coil spring itself. So it worked pretty cool. It was almost like a modern coil-over shock setup.
Right.
You know, kind of like what we're seeing on the UTVs now, where it's a single shock with all the control there. You know, that would have probably worked out much better back then, seeing what we have now.
Do you remember the dealership that used to do that at a much more poverty level? No. And they used to sell those Rangers with spindles, and then they would drill out the mount and run like a 14-inch shock through there. It was...
a local
auto finance specialist.
Oh my God!
Were they a local company?
And all the Rangers in East County had bullseye spindles on them with a single shock, 14-inch travel or 12-inch travel shock running right through the
Yeah, if you wanted anything.
Was that a 2.5-inch shock or a 2-inch shock?
I think it was a 2-inch that we
Was
started
it
with on there.
5100?
And you're racing on
Yeah.
a 2-inch shock.
Yeah, it got pretty hot quick. It
Yeah.
definitely got hot quick. But we had a 4-cylinder in the front at the time.
Right.
We just had a little 4-cylinder, small little header out the side. It worked great. And, we actually had the clutch was still in it back then, too. So we were doing manual shift and, hand signals and all that stuff. But it was so great growing up. Down in Mexico, we had a beach house that we were always surfing at and cruising around and riding the dirt bikes. And one day we woke up and there was like a caterpillar and some action going on in the middle of this lagoon that kind of looks like Torrey Pines State Beach here in San Diego. It's almost exactly like that, but no highway in the middle. And sure enough, the locals were having a race that day. And, we literally had, no way we're going racing today. It's on. We loaded up the cooler and went down into the lagoon, and the locals let us join in, and we did their dirt bike race and this and that. And then I saw the cars that showed up, and I looked at my truck, and I looked at their truck, and I said, I'm pretty close here. This looks like fun.
Yeah.
This looks like fun. So next thing you know, a couple months later, we did some TLC on the truck and came down and raced with the locals, and they really had a great time with us with our dirt bikes and everything, and really put us up in town. We brought, stuff for the contingency. We brought old Osiris shoes and stuff for all the people for their awards and the races, and they had a great time having us down there. So they really put us up and respected us and taught us about racing and taught us so much down there and really showed us how to do things. And it's difficult if you haven't done that before, or your family doesn't show you and this and that. They were teaching us Spanish and how to race at the same time. It was really cool.
So how long have you been racing down there now?
It's hard to guesstimate, but I think it's almost 15 years now. It's so tough because I've been involved in competitive sports for so long.
Right.
Since I was really young, probably since I could walk. I think I was on a skateboard.
Right.
And, I did recently find a picture of me in Mexico with my family in a stroller. We were in TJ.
So it was 15 years officially racing in like sanctioned races, but probably most of your life.
Yeah, most of my life.
Racing your buddies.
Yeah, racing buddies, being competitive, whether it be a half pipe or, surfing some waves down at Black's Beach, whatever it was always competitive with us. And we always, seemed to compete against each other, which definitely gained that level of competitiveness. And, we always kind of stood out from others. And we really lucked out being in Southern California. There's so much stuff here. It's awesome. It's kind of the mecca of all the industries. I think Encinitas has so many pro athletes these days. It's incredible. You can't go anywhere down there without seeing someone that's on TV.
Yeah.
If you're cruising around on the weekends or just even
Plus
hanging out on the
being so
beach.
close here in San Diego, so close to the Baja, all the racing that happens down there, we noticed that having our business located here really helps us with that type of racing down there. So you're so close and so connected.
Yeah,
all the
between
time.
Nevada, Arizona, and Baja, we're right here. It's mountains, it's deserts, it's beach. You got a lot of stuff here, but racing in Mexico is a lot different than racing in
Well,
U.S.
Shane told us the story of why we're even here, right? Like because of Baja.
Yeah.
Shane was, he was like 18 years old back in 1947 when we started this.
Yeah.
So he told us this story that Mercedes shocks were being sent here at such a high level for to be used in Baja.
Well, the Baja 1000 started in 67 or 68, or the Mexican 1000.
Yeah.
And then those drivers had discovered monotube shocks because every other shock was a twin tube.
Mm-hmm.
And they would, on Mercedes-Benz, we were OE supplier, and they would import these Mercedes-Benz shocks. And I remember speaking with one of our first distributors, Anderson and Steely.
Yeah.
And he told me that he would drive around.
Who distributed Bilstein shocks from the back of a van, yes.
He said a Cadillac.
Yeah,
Or,
yeah.
no,
It started with a Cadillac.
Large passenger car.
Exactly.
He didn't say Cadillac, but he had Bilstein shocks in the back of a trunk. Imagine this in the 60s and 70s. They had big trunks back then.
Right.
And
It needed to hold all the 8 tracks.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
he would distribute Bilstein shocks to people racing the Baja 1000. And that's why we're in San Diego, because this was the first place where we were selling Bilstein shocks. And it was because of the Baja 1000.
Right.
And I believe we were probably the first company to make a purpose-built off-road racing shock, which really was just a monotube shock with Heim joints on both ends.
Right.
I
Right. The
think
early 7100s. Yeah.
They started off, rusted red, and then they were green,
They're yellow.
and then they became yellow.
Yep.
But some of the first ones were like a rust color. But anyways, that's the heritage of Bilstein in the U.S.
Yeah,
in
there's
San
still
Diego.
guys racing on some of those, some of the
Absolutely.
original style stuff at the
Yeah,
Nora
there's a
race. It's
huge-
incredible.
Remember
Yeah.
how fast Robertson was?
Yeah, there's a huge following at the Nora. I mean, we actually have a whole group of people that continue to bring us those shocks, and they want the original paint, the original decals, the original valving,
Yeah,
everything to restore
I get
the
calls all
old
the time. They're, hey, man, can you get a hold of somebody over at Bilstein where we got this classic car? Do you think we need some
Yeah.
help with? And we can't. No one knows much about.
Well, I
these
mean, all the
things.
vintage and Pioneer class in the Mexico 1000. I mean, most of it is running Bilstein.
Well, they really only had one choice that was a monotube, us.
That was the only monotube shock there was.
It's-
Period. It was the best. A monotube shock outperforms a twin tube shock for off-road because twin tube shock cavitates.
right.
Yeah, and these were movie stars, athletes,
Yeah,
and,
the
you know,
list of
astronauts,
drivers,
and like you know,
exactly.
crazy people. A lot of engineers, a
Yeah.
lot of engineering friends behind these vehicles at the time.
So
and-
basically,
lot of crazy
Bilstein,
people.
what you're saying is Bilstein started life out with CrossFit Mint.
Yes.
Kind of, yeah.
Bilstein U.S.
We used to have a name
Bilstein
for it. Do you
US.
remember the name for the early versions of CrossFit, Shane?
Robertson Revalve.
There you go.
Wow.
The Robertson Revalve.
I was hired here by Larry and Doug Robertson, and I don't know. I've been working here for so long. Like, I feel like kind of grew up with Doug Robertson a little bit, but it's great to hear from him here and there.
his-
Last time
his
I
folks-
talked to him, he
his-
was
his-
hanging out with Ivan Stewart.
Yeah.
His Beatles was fast.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Was exceptionally fast.
Yeah, but just so the public knows, those VWs that are racing the Score Series are not the same VWs that you see in the classic
No.
ones. They have
Right, they're not
different
class-
rules
they're not-
now.
Yeah.
It is a different car with the VW shell on it.
Yeah,
It looks
exactly.
like a bug on the outside, but
Yeah,
it's,
even the Class
it's
11s,
gotten
which is
crazy.
most outside of shock absorbers, is relatively stock. Those things are super fast now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
they're-
heavily modified.
It's
too.
basically a Class 12 car now.
Yeah.
with
it's
a
nuts.
bug shell. They've opened up the rules, which is great. These guys get to finish. They get to pound on the cars a lot harder. It looks great on the course. I mean, these guys are just banging on every corner.
But Doug was a Class 5.
Class 5.
And even in his days, it was just stacking like 346 millimeter shocks in the front and rear.
Exactly. Yeah.
And they had 100 cars, like at the Mint 400.
And he
and
was
things.
blistering fast.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't screw around.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like,
you-
imagine that.
You get beat up a little bit in there,
Yeah.
but it's a little tight. But that's racing. Racing, you got to push it, and you got to, if you're not on the edge, you're not racing.
Yeah.
Exactly. So when we were sitting here, when you walked in today, we started talking about a few of your stories from Baja, and you probably have enough stories to go on for 5 or 6 hours, which we would love to do that with you, but I think we all have regular jobs to go back to at some point. But
Yep.
how about the most recent race? What was one of the most, well, pick a story that you think would be your favorite from the race that you just actually won. The Baja 500.
I got a good one. It was tough. This was a summer race, and summer races are really difficult in Mexico, and you never really quite know where the course is going to go until a couple weeks before they release the map. And sure enough, this year they wanted to go down the summit, which we really like. It's a great little trail, but at the bottom of the summit, you wind up in this big desert valley, and you're in these big hills and big cavities and sand washes that are going through it, and there's actually a lake bed as well that's out there. There's a lot of silt and sand, a lot of sandy rocks, and this time the temperature started rising. A week before it looked really good, and then sure enough, race day came along and it jumped up another 10 degrees. It was about 110, 115
That's the outside temperature.
ambient
110,
outside
115
temperature,
degrees, yeah.
and that's pretty hot for running race cars in
Definitely.
any country. It's pretty hard to keep the motor running and without it catching on fire, the whole thing. But we were going along pretty good. We had a pretty good run, and we come down the summit, and it started getting hot, and we've had some problems with the heat before in our fuel pumps. So we engineered a little water pump system that basically cools off the water pumps. It's a windshield wiper pump on the back of the firewall, and it starts getting hot. You can hear the motor start, whoa, 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 and next thing you hit the switch on the dashboard, and starts racing up again. We did that for about 30 miles, and then finally the motor was like, no, thank you. We are stopping here.
We're done.
And happened to be in an uphill sand wash. We had two choices, either a left turn that had rocks in it or a left turn that had a lot more sand in it. and it was pretty hot. So I knew it right away. We took the helmets off and tried to back up for a second, and done. We're stuck. So time to break out the boards. We carry 4 of these running boards. They're about 3 feet each, width of a tire. Lifesavers. These things are game changers out there.
Would
So
that
it's
be
like
a Max
Yeah,
Trax?
it's like a Max Trax, or is it a Max
It's
Trax?
like a Max Trax. We tend to go through them quite a bit.
Yeah.
So we have a different brand that we like to utilize that we don't have to worry about leaving them and for someone else to use potentially. They do get buried. And in this case, we got stuck. We backed up the first time. Truck went right back in the sand, just sunk back in. Even though we're back downhill, it still just sunk back in and didn't want to go. Just not enough weight in the rear probably, and too much sand. And so I aired down maybe 30 seconds on each back tire, put the boards back down again, gave it a little bit more juice, and was able to pull back into a safe spot, right back into a bush. But we're beat. It's hot, and we're sweating. We get back out of the car, and sure enough, all 4 boards are totally missing in this complete wash. They're all gone, and we're about 30 miles left of sand wash to get back to civilization and
Gonna need the
Hawaii
boards
way.
again, probably.
And we're going to need those boards. I mean, we're not going anywhere without those boards unless you want to put your race suit down next time we get stuck. There's not a lot of bushes or trees or branches, stuff to grab on over there. Sure, there's a lot of rocks, but it's 115. If you start doing bricklaying with rocks at 115, you might overheat.
Yeah.
And you might not make it out of there, and you'll be calling the ambulance or the helicopter.
Exactly.
Sounds dangerous.
One of the two
Yeah.
is going to happen.
Yeah.
And, both of us were starting to overheat. We had to do a sit in the shadow, go into the, go sit somewhere, get under the truck, whatever, just cool off, had a water. Finally got back in the thing, was able to get a little bit momentum from that thing. Thank God we made it out of there and got back to the highway, because I know both of us were cooking for sure. And
Yeah.
it's funny because when I got back, we always clean the suits, and I pulled my race suit up and I looked at it, and there's literally a big, like an imaginary person behind my race suit from the sweat line from me sitting in the seat. It was really funny. I haven't seen that in a long time.
Yeah. The outline of hard work sitting in the driver's seat.
Yeah, it was tough. I was working a lot. The terrain is just nasty. You're really working the car a lot. And, you got to take it easy. Anyone can go out there and go punch it, but you're going to outdrive the car. The spindles will come flying off the thing. You're going to lose the rear end, whatever. Something's going to break bad if you don't take it easy and time it a little bit. We were having a great run with the shocks. It was amazing in the heat. It was incredible coming into that section and even following after that section. In most cases, the shocks would start overheating. We're pushing it pretty hard in about 100 degrees before we started having problems. And it's a lot of whoops, and we're following trophy trucks, and guys have been pre-running for 3 weeks straight, and it is nasty out there race day. It does not look the same when you go pre-running as it does race day.
Yeah.
What happened out here? Well, somebody did some unlimited pre-running for the last week and a half that might not work so much like we do.
Yeah, tore up the course.
Tore up the course, but that makes it interesting, and it's survival of the fittest at the end of it. So we were really glad we made it out of there and got over to San Matias and got our second driver in with Cole Andrews and Adrian Padilla. They did a great job on the second half and took it down to the coast, and it was cool the rest of the night. No problems with our fuel pumps, no problems with the shocks. They made it clean. The only problem they had was when they got up to Ojos, which is basically coming from the beach back up the mountain and then back into Ensenada. There's kind of these steep, hilly, off-kilter sections, and for some reason there was a guy from a four-wheeler in the middle of the road with a flashlight just waving people down for no reason. And when Cole came up to him, he stopped, and when he caught over a little bit, of course, he got high-centered. The road was kind of deep right there, and sure enough, he got stuck, and the guy literally jumped on his four-wheeler, kick-started it, and took off right next to him. So we're like,
Left the truck stuck in the middle of the road.
thanks. We definitely avoided, running into you, but why you were in the middle of the road, I don't know. Maybe he was frustrated from the bigger cars. He had been having a long day. He was probably well over 24 hours with that bike. Maybe not him, but his crew. A lot of those guys try to finish just to get the medal. They'll still get the medal, but they'll be way past the time limit.
Those guys on on quads and motorcycles,
Yeah.
they get super.
Yeah, they start seeing things and all kinds of stuff happen. So it's good to stop and slow down and make sure the guy's not helping someone that's
Delusional.
unconscious or
Buried in
delusional,
the
and
silt pit, or
we need to
Don't
get some
know
help
where he's
for him.
at.
Yeah.
because they get heat soaked just like a motor, man, and they don't know where they're at.
Yeah, it's
I've
a
been out
buddy
there
system.
I've been
Yeah.
out there many times where you come up on someone that's just dead stopped, even in a car, and they've been overheated and they're just delusional. They don't even know where they're at.
Yeah. People don't understand that how much effort and how much fatigue your body goes through sitting in the driver's seat.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, you're coordinating with other vehicles. There's people passing you, behind you, in front of you. You're in the dust. There's locals in the road. There's so much going on, let alone a full tilt workout.
Right.
It is a full workout in there. Even in the navigator's position, it's hard to stare at that screen and bounce around the whole time without getting sick. A lot of guys have problems with that, or Dramamine or motion sickness stuff. But Cole and those guys did a good job once they got stuck up there. A couple UTVs got impatient and nudged the car and pushed them off the cliff a little bit. And then a bigger car came that was a little bit late and pushed it really down a cliff. But luckily, another team that we know that we're family friends with, they got stuck maybe 20, 30 yards behind Cole and actually ran up to us and borrowed those boards that we almost lost. They got their trophy truck unstuck and came up to us and were like, what's going on? We're, we just need a tug. And we had the strap ready to go, and they tugged them back off the cliff, and that was it. The guys were able to come into a finish. We were probably 3 hours over our expected finish time. We finished in 18 hours in the 500 miles. So we were planning a little sooner, but because of the heat and the little situation on the hill with getting nudged a bit, pushed us back a little bit. But, thank goodness we finished in good time. And first place, you can't complain about that. And we're looking forward to the Milestone Award this year. We've been really trying for the last 5 years to get this Milestone Award, which is finishing every mile of every race. And
Nice.
It's so difficult. We were literally maybe 30 minutes shy last year on the Baja 400, which is coming up in the next 2 months. So it's kind of it's a dicey one for me. It's a little nerve-wracking because this is a tough one to finish, and it is before the 1,000, and there's a tight turnaround between the 400 and the 1,000, so it's almost double prep this summer.
Right. So you were telling us
Crazy.
another not funny story, but kind of a story that I don't think people understand. So we know that it was hot on the track, right? Hot, 115 degrees outside.
Yeah,
And the motor temperature and all that. And you were telling me that you have problems with one of your feet overheating and how you cured it.
Yeah. A few years back, we were racing in kind of a hotter summer, and next thing you know, my foot's like cooking, and I have a work boot, like a construction boot on. And I'm like, not even a racing shoe at the time, and it's melting the heel on this thing, and I'm like, damn, I didn't even think that would happen. But it does. Once you don't have the carpet and all the other stuff on a natural car, it's just a thin sheet of metal, and the other side of the metal is going to be the headers. And when you're racing or you're up in high RPMs, it's going to get red hot, and so will the floor. So what we decided to do after my foot burnt and I got a giant blister, the thing was so big on the back of my heel that the beach was definitely out for like a month, no sand.
Yeah.
And then so what we did is one of my other buddies is like, hey, you know what? I got some of this fire hose. I think it'll work. It'll definitely damper that heat. It works. They drag that stuff through the fire and all these buildings and stuff. So we cut one of those fire hoses up and sandwiched it between an aluminum plate. And sure enough, perfect. Not
Cured the
not
hot
a
foot.
snip. But still, even at this race, I started feeling my racing shoe snugging up on my foot and my sock. It was really sucking up, and I was like, oh no, is it burning again? Is it on fire?
It's melting.
So I'm trying to hold my foot off the floorboard and push on the gas pedal.
Yeah,
Just
doesn't
mentally, you start jockeying weird stuff in the car after a few hours.
No leverage without the heel down, right?
Yeah, and you get nervous, because you definitely don't want to burn it again. It's kind of that, going back to a sore spot again.
Great stories. One thing that I was interested in is I think most folks don't understand the whole race car driver thing, right? So I don't think there are too many people that are just a race car driver. So tell us about what you do when you're not a race car driver.
Yeah, it may look like on social media that all I do is have this cool car, that these really nice Bilstein logos on it, and but it's a lot more than that. I've been working full time since I was probably 14, 15. Working at the San Diego Fair, getting work permits as a kid, all kinds of stuff. But I grew up with an engineering father, and he had an engineering firm here, and sure enough, I was out there skateboarding and surfing, and he's like, I need you to get your butt in the office. I need your help right now. And I was watching all my friends, play music, work in bars and restaurants and stuff, and having a good time. But when I saw my stepdad's friends, they had Porsches and nice cars,
The big difference.
and a bunch of Audis and all this stuff, and I'm like, this might pay off here. So sure enough, I started doing AutoCAD and started drafting and doing engineering stuff and started working on buildings and making places just like this and supporting facilities just like Bilstein here. The job I work for today helps support Bilstein's electrical equipment and all their stuff that they need for all their CNC machines. We do the panels, the electrical stuff, and get whatever's going on in there. But where it's really come into play is, having this job and having the ability to go on adventures and go do things and make these modifications to the truck. Starting out, you just had this mid-travel kit. Well, the other cars go a lot faster with this long travel kit.
Right.
You gotta get it, and not everyone's sponsored or has parents that are going to supply this stuff for you. So I really had to work for it, and working full time here in San Diego and going to night school, working on trucks and learning engineering and being able to work on the truck more, and having an engineering father that grew up on a farm and a ranch and worked on machinery and stuff as well really paid off. And just asking a lot of questions was huge. I probably asked 1,000 questions to Shane over the years on how can we do this? I think we, let's do this, let's do that. What can we do better to make this happen? Or, just increasing the ball joints on the ends to get us a better ride at the longer end and not worry about stuff. And it's incredible. There's so much that goes into it for R&D with not only the shocks, but the suspension kits, everything that's involved in the vehicle and stuff that we do off-roading obviously goes right into the cars. And crossovers and SUVs that, our families drive in and our kids are riding in too these days.
When you started out racing on suspension kits.
Yeah, essentially it was just a mid-travel kit.
Which is interesting because I think before long travel, mid-travel kits came in, and then you switch to a long travel kit, right? I mean, people would build their own suspension, but then, the suspension kit's got so cool, like a cambered kit, something like that you can buy the stuff off the shelf and you actually race.
Yeah, literally our current truck is a bolt-on kit, the entire thing. The long travel, the 4-link, everything is available over the counter for anyone to come out and purchase and come racing with us or against us. Give us a call anytime. We love doing pointers and helping other people get involved.
So what is the range you're currently cycle as far as suspension travel?
The front is right around 16, maybe close to 16 and a half, 3/4 maybe. The rear is probably around 25, 26 or so, plus or minus.
So 15 or 16 inch in the front?
So I know
it's about 16 because we were able to utilize that when we modified our truck to do the long travel and we got rid of that coil bucket. We were able to kind of clean up that coil bucket and really slide into a coilover and a bypass and get it in that upper control arm real nice and tight with a little bit of extra travel. Some of the other frames push out a little bit further and you have a hard time getting that down travel.
Yeah.
Now I noticed, go ahead.
I know you've been in tons of trucks, trophy trucks, 6100 trucks. How is it racing? Because 16 inches of travel sure sounds like a lot. But when you're hitting these monster whoops that are just chewed up, how does it feel in a car that would be considered moderate travel in comparison to like a 6100 truck?
I guess a really good comparison to like normal average people would be a regular mountain bike without shocks. We've all had them back in the day. Right. And you hit that little curb and and now you get this thing with the shocks on it. You borrow your kid's bike and you ride the thing and it's like, it's like riding a pogo stick,
Yeah.
It's so soft and you just cruise over everything, and it's like you said, it's made a huge difference. Mm. But the thing is when you're down at 12 inches of travel, you got to read the road. Yeah, you got to be patient, read the road. It's just like a dirt bike. When you're riding dirt bikes, even just naturally with your buddies riding a dirt bike, you really have to watch the road. One of those rain ruts and you're off the bike, and you could twist a leg or an arm, collarbone real quickly, and end that fun weekend. So getting back into the truck is same thing with 12. You got to watch it. But then once you start getting into the 16s or the long travel stuff, then you can kind of just breeze over some of that stuff as much. So in our races, we use some of the trophy truck notes, and they're a little bit different than the speed that we're going and the rate that we're going. So we have a little different markers that we include with theirs. They might have something that's a G out for them, but we don't even notice it because we're not going 100 and we're not going to fly up over on the roof.
Yeah.
We're only going 60 or 80 through that, and we could probably make it just fine. So we might even just erase the note.
Yeah.
Nice.
So there's all kinds of Class 7s, I've noticed. And there's Class 7, Class 7SX, Class 7S. You're in Class 7F.
Yeah, 7F has been really cool because we sort of brought back the original 7 open truck, the original Class 7 truck with a real factory frame, a factory vehicle. It's got a factory cab. Our doors are still the factory doors. We still have the stock doors on the thing, which is unique because when you get into 7 open, they decided to change the rules a little bit, and they're now allowing a trophy truck with a NASCAR V6 in it. So it's essentially a full tube frame, has really not much to do with the factory anymore, minus a turbo 400 and some type of, a raced out NASCAR motor. But a few of these guys are doing it, but there's not many, and most of them that have that truck have now moved into spec TT because they're allowing V6 turbos in the class now. So they've opened it up a little bit, and a lot of these manufacturers have gone with this really high-end V6 with a turbo, and now they're getting the same horsepower ratios as the V8s did back in the day. So they're lightening the package, but yeah, now you need an intercooler and a couple little parts, but we can slide that stuff in.
So is part of the class rules that you have to run a bolt-on kit, or does that matter?
Yeah, in our class, they still want you to use the factory pivot points in the front, unless there's something really off that it's just not going to work. Some of the Toyotas have a little bit of different than the Ranger chassis, and same with the Chevys. But we have a pretty great set of rules. You can go as wide as you want, as much travel as you want, as long as you keep the same motor from the factory and don't touch the thing. We literally, our motor's from a junkyard and went right into the race truck.
And that's a 4-cylinder?
It's
4 liter, right?
Yeah.
It's a V6 3.7 naturally aspirated. It's the last naturally aspirated motor at Ford. They still sell that currently today. It's in their vans, the like work vans that they have.
Yeah.
It was also in an F-150 at a time, and also in the police cars for the Edges and the Explorers. They had it there. If the Ranger still existed and was in manufacturing at the time, it would have had this motor in it.
They were in the Mustang too, right?
Yeah, also the Mustang.
Yeah.
So
They had that crazy high ratio ring gear, but they were doing 310 horsepower and getting 35 miles to the gallon or something.
yeah, it's
crazy.
killer gas mileage, incredible gas mileage in our race truck at 300 to 325 horsepower. And it's great we have 37-inch tires with 583 gears, and it just locks up on the ground. It's like a tractor. It loves hill climbing. It's really good in silt beds. We're still using a Yukon 9-inch in there. We don't have the 10.5, and we try to keep it light. Seems to be paying off for us to keep the truck as light as we can, as possible, and just keep moving forward on that thing.
Now, is the frame completely stock? Are you allowed to profile it or notch it or anything?
In our class, you're allowed to notch the back of the frame for up rear travel because we have the 4-link suspension kit in it. And in order to get the most benefit out of that, it's got to come up a little bit more in the rear. So we can notch the frame all the way up to the very top plate. There's another truck in our class that did back half the thing, but they actually have a solid piece of steel that comes like a square tube that comes back out, kind of mimicking the frame, and the bump stop's still at the same spot as it would be on our truck if you still had the frame in there. So equal party.
So
Glad to have another racer.
you can back half it if you want.
Kind of, but we've just have it in agreement with the other racers in the class as how far did you go with this thing? Is it really chopped off? In this case, these guys put a square tube, a square frame back in the chassis,
Okay.
and made it almost look like it had the factory thing. Because you could really benefit if you cut the back off. Sure, you're gonna get 3 or 4 more inches of up travel, and that could make the difference. But you still have the factory front. The
Yeah.
front is what's going to hold us back, and even it still holds us back a little bit today. We could go faster, but
Yeah, you're
you
already
know.
10 inches more travel in the rear than the front anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing wheelies all day, sure, it's great, you know. But the front's you gotta turn every once in a while, and you gotta slow down to turn. And it's whooped out corners almost the whole race. So you're literally jumping through a corner, trying to stay in the course. And if you go on the inside, you're probably gonna hit a tree, and if you go on the outside, you're probably going in the rocks or off a ledge.
Yeah. Big
So if you have an I-beam truck, you have to have the I-beams in the stock location? Sounds like it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
On the
But
frame.
Yeah.
your mount for your suspension, we're really not totally, you know, you can move plus or minus. Like I said, on the A-arm trucks, maybe you need to widen up your A-arm on the top, which is totally fine because you're going to put 2 shocks in there instead of 1, and the factory mount might not be wide enough. No one's going to cry wolf about that. It's still on the top of the frame. It's just 2 tabs.
So can you run a longer radius arm on a I-beam, or you got to have that in the stock location at plus or minus?
We're pretty much open on this stuff. I mean,
Okay.
more crap means more weight and more problems.
Yeah.
It's kind of a you know, light and lean thing.
Yeah. It sounds like a total power to weight ratio thing
And we have we have the single cab. We don't have the extra cab, so we have a shorter wheelbase, which is closer to some of the, you know, UTV styles, and we benefit from the guys that have the extra cab because they have to literally do a couple of turns sometimes in the corners. They can't make the corners on the course. It's really tight.
And
They got to slow down more.
When you're dealing with a frame vehicle, it's so much harder to package things than when you're dealing with a tube chassis. It's
Yeah.
like it's like you said, trying to keep it light and agile is
the tube chassis. You pick where things go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even the extra cab, adding just a foot more of car means a foot more of roll cage all the way around and everything else involved in it. And it definitely adds up. I think ours is around 4,000, and then you get the extra cabs, and theirs are around 6.
Wow.
And there's
1,000
something
pounds.
there's something in my opinion to finishing a race with basically, like as you mentioned, parts that the public could buy.
I think that's
You know what I mean?
badass.
Oh,
yeah,
that's the
that's
best feeling.
totally. I mean,
When you cross
so
the finish line, it's so
competitive,
much
yeah.
more rewarding
Yeah.
than you know, a 6100 truck that basically you can't buy anything on there.
A spaceship with 40s on it?
It's
Yeah. I mean,
four
you
and a
really
half inch shocks, 3-inch
Yeah.
coilovers, 3-inch bumps, 2.5-inch bump stops. I mean,
plus
it's like,
it was designed by
What's
NASA.
the fun of that?
Yeah.
What's the fun of that?
Yeah.
we've talked about it many times.
Yeah,
You build the fun out of the hobby.
Right.
Like the rock crawlers do it too. They do it all the time. They put Dana 80s, big Ultimate 80 axles and 42-inch tires and long arm and
That's the sad face coming up.
and how steering or whatever the steering, and it's like now any obstacle you put in front of you is a zero challenge. And it's some of these trophy trucks. It's like, I mean, they got 34 inches of front wheel travel, 36 inches of front wheel travel, and it's like everyone knows all it takes is mashing the gas pedal and pointing this thing in a direction, and it's going to go. Whereas when you're in a 7F, it's like there's driver talent. There's a ton of driver
you
talent.
got to
in
drive
it.
it. You got to baby that gas pedal and the brake. It's
You got to
feather
deal
both
with
the whole
far
time.
more fatigue than someone that's drinking coffee as they're being told left, right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like you take the hobby out of the hobby when you overbuild, and it's just so much more rewarding, in my opinion, to cross that line with an FK bearing that you can go to ORW and buy off the shelf.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It
It's-
just seems way more justified.
Yeah,
Or you could
it's-
go to Camberg and buy this kit. Like
Yeah.
you said, it's there.
Available
It is. It's sold to the public.
Yeah.
Way faster than trying to do it yourself.
Way more
Exactly.
rewarding when you finish a race.
Yeah, it's incredible when we're out there, and we take off after the trophy trucks and the spec trucks, which are they're basically the same. It's just one's 4-wheel drive and one's 2-wheel drive with a limited motor.
And they chew up the damn course.
Yeah, they got
Exactly.
40-inch tires. A 4-wheel drive car with 40-inch tires
And 1,000 horsepower.
Over
Yeah.
1,000 horsepower now. It just literally digs a trench.
Yeah.
So we have to follow that, and it is incredible. This last race, we came up to a section that was new that they haven't used in a long time, and it looked great pre-running. Oh, this is nice. A couple little soft corners. Well, sure enough, race day, it was like 2 feet deep, almost the whole run for a couple miles.
Yeah.
And it was on the side of a hill, going up a hill, and then around the side of the hill, off kilter. And there's people, stuck and littered, big trophy truck stuff. And then somehow, after years of experience of trying to get through this stuff and make it in our truck, which tends to be almost impassable at times, and you really have to buckle up and go for it. You got to buckle up and go for it sometimes. And getting through there, it's such a rush when you're going through there and you can see this big trophy truck stuck and all this $1 million of things sitting there, and it's just dust cloud on the thing, and 2 guys are out there, kicking the side of the thing, and you're just bushwhacking and going right around them. And you can't do much. You just got to keep going.
Just screaming.
Yeah, exactly.
There's so much head turning on some of our races towards the end of the day, because there's guys they're just like, oh my gosh, and they're like, we should have had one of my cars. Go pick one up.
Yeah, it's just more rewarding. It's like it's like the least to me. It's like I always am a fan of the underdog. Not that you're an underdog, but the car in today's time is quote unquote underdog. Like, you don't have all that travel, you don't have all that technology, you don't have 1,000 horsepower, you don't have
35-inch tires don't cut it anymore. And down in Mexico, it's really dicey. If you go pre-running with 35s and no 4-wheel drive, you're probably in trouble.
High-centered.
And imagine the Class 11 guys.
Yeah,
how
they're
do they
skidding.
do it?
Yeah.
They just skid on that pan.
Yeah,
The whole
just
bottom of the car is a pan.
Yeah.
And they just it hurts when you're in the car. You feel it through the floorboard. You feel it in the seats the whole time.
I mean, imagine back in the day, my buddy Danny Ledesma told me only real men drive Class 11. they would pee blood for 2 weeks after the race, and it's crazy because back in the day it was just Volkswagen bus transmissions with a 1600 dual port, and you're 9 times out of 10 you're finishing the last 100 miles of the race with just second gear.
Yeah.
And you didn't have the whole course torn up by
Danny,
40s.
And Ledesma, brother, Danny used to tell me, they used to race prep the car, and he would say, just keep the brake pads off. It's too much weight.
Yeah.
The car's not powerful enough to even need
We don't need brakes.
You know what I mean? So he would finish a race with just second gear of the transmission, and we're like, oh my God.
Everything's
It's crazy, the adventure, I mean, I could see like a trophy truck, the adventures, I don't know, I'm sure there's some adventure, but not like what you're going through.
Yeah, I mean, there's a rush going 146 to 150 miles an hour down a driveway.
Sure.
Right.
But
like the story, like there's a guy in the middle.
Yeah, getting high-centered on the course
I
because
feel like
guy standing in the middle of the road.
I feel like the old-time drivers, the old-school drivers, the stories they used to tell is coming. That whole era is coming to an end.
We got a good one from the Baja 1000 this last year. The 1000 started in La Paz and came back up, first time ever. Well, guess what that means? You got to take all your equipment down there and start in the middle of nowhere and come back with it.
Yeah.
But it was a long one. It was 13, the second longest race in Score Baja 1000 history. Besides, they had a 2000 once where they did a return and back, which I can't even imagine, but they did it. And I know some Bilstein teams finished that one. I know for sure. I have a friend that had them and did finish in the 7S truck. But it was 30. I think it took us 37 hours to finish the race,
dude,
which was
crazy.
multiple days.
Like, think about that for a second. 37 hours,
dude. I can't
nonstop. Yeah,
I can't even be in a home with air conditioning and a TV for 37.
So we start in the pause.
That takes a lot of head strength.
Yeah,
I think people don't understand how insanely intense the Baja 1000 is.
Yeah,
it is like a crazy ass adventure.
Yeah,
and you know what? Like one year,
especially when you're doing it with bolt-on parts.
Yeah. One year, it was the year our truck and trailer got stolen, but we watched my Joel and I watched the entire start, and the craziest stuff was the stuff at the end.
Yeah,
like there's stuff slower than a Class 11. So like with desert racing, the fastest car starts first, then the second fastest class, and the third fastest class. And when you get down into Class 11, there's some stuff that's slower than that.
There's a few sportsman classes out there, and there are some guys in factory cars with barely anything, and a few dealerships that really want to go out and try this out.
Run a stock truck.
Like a guy with a Land Rover, like a
Cancel Christmas.
like starting the Baja 1000.
That one's he's finishing a week later.
Yeah, it goes for every race. Like the more you modify, the more extreme you modify the vehicle, I think it's the less heart you take out of your passion.
Right.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like
Totally.
It's
less
like,
adventurous.
I want to go out here. I want to feel this terrain. Like I want to go out to Moab in a TJ with a short arm kit so I could see how it feels to be tippy. Like I want that feeling. It's just like you want to know you hit a 3-foot whoop.
Yep.
I mean, gliding over it, anyone can do that in a $1 million trophy truck.
Right.
It's really strange, the difference between like catching air on a skateboard and catching air on a truck is totally different. On a skateboard, you're like, well, you can see the air and you know where you're at and where you're going to land and stuff. On a truck, you really kind of don't know. You don't really quite know how high you are in the air. But it's always cool looking at the picture afterwards.
Right.
It was like the time when Chelsea launched her cross.
Yeah.
I didn't really know I was in the air.
Yeah. Couldn't see the road from the air. Yeah.
But I just think like in all sports, whether you're doing it recreationally, whether you're doing it professionally, over modifying. This just goes to tell
the theme of podcast.
Over modifying sometimes takes the fun out of it.
Yeah.
Put your roto packs away and get yourself a couple of water jugs. You're going to be fine, I promise you.
Same
I was
thing.
going to say Justin's officially an overlander because he has Max Tracks on his road.
Yeah, but he uses them.
Yeah.
He
We actually use them.
Almost lost him.
Hey, he uses them and loses them.
Yeah.
So he says he
And he
has a plethora. He's on a monthly subscription.
No, we got
of
like
things.
6 sets. There's
Yeah.
a spare set in every chase truck in
Yeah.
case we lose them.
So the guy with the trophy truck that got stuck.
and just-
Like he was way too badass to have Max Tracks.
Exactly.
But look,
Just a message
Can
to
I
the
borrow
public.
yours? Yeah.
Just a message to the public. Max Tracks are built for 2-wheel drive race trucks that go through silt beds, not 4-wheel drive 4Runners that
And
go
that's
through
something that I
washboard.
don't think we ever told folks. The truck's 2-wheel drive, yes?
Yeah, it's a 2-wheel drive truck,
So
rear wheel.
you wonder, you're thinking, I'm sure people are thinking, how does a 4-wheel drive truck get stuck in the sand? Well, this is a 2-wheel drive truck and the sand's like 6 feet deep. So
most race cars are 2-wheel drive.
yeah.
So back to that 1,000 and that 36 hours. So we're coming in. We went through 2 completely different rainstorms in the whole peninsula of Baja. One in the middle of the peninsula, and then the day 3. Sure enough, another one coming in from the coast,
And they're crazy
We're
because they're like
watching it.
flash floods and then they go away.
And this is the weekend before Thanksgiving. It's winter. It's full-blown
it's
winter down
definitely
here,
winter.
and it's mud and it's nasty. So we're coming back. The truck's already mudded out. We barely made it through the first rainstorm. I don't know how we made it through. It was like there was a river coming down, and we were going up the river in the wash. And the tire tracks were full of water, and it was gone. The road was gone already, but we made it through there. And then finally we get by Viatea, our famous area, over by that, just above the goat trail. We come up the goat trail. Next thing you know, it's a giant lake up there. It's like Ramona's flooded. The whole town of Ramona's flooded, and everyone's staying in their homes.
Yeah.
But we got to go through it, and it's maybe 2 a.m, day 3. No one slept. We're still all been up, and somehow they're coming along, and it's
2
really
or 3 in the morning.
it's really, really muddy, and they were going a little bit too fast, and somehow the car made its own way down into this ditch, and it was a ditch like a V, and the nose and the tail of the truck were stuck, and the tires were dropped all the way down into the ravine or river or whatever
Not
it was.
touching the ground.
There was like 2 feet of water underneath the truck, and the wheels were all the way dropped out, and we were stuck nose to tail in a ditch. And there was
At
no
2 in
one
the
around.
morning.
2 in the morning, in the middle of
in a
nowhere.
flood.
You didn't
Yeah.
have a scuba suit. You
Yeah.
didn't know what the
Yeah,
hell was
exactly.
going on.
No, totally. These guys were in their race suits, just soaking wet. I was just down waiting to get back in the car and finish up the race, and it was taking so long. So I got in my car, raced back over to them, and there was no one around. And everyone's like, "We're not going back in there. No one's going in there, man. You guys are crazy. This is going to be till tomorrow." Somehow there was somebody else stuck in there, and somebody got some Jeep in there, and there was like 2 different cables, 2 long cables, a long strap, all this. This guy didn't want to go anywhere near the car, but somehow I got a picture of this cable coming through a picture for maybe like 50 or 60 yards into the truck that's stuck, and they get it pulled out and whip it back around. We get back, they get back in, and they're like, "We're not driving the truck." someone else needs to drive the truck. So Cole's like, I'm on it. Like, this is his first time driving the truck in the 1,000. He was really psyched on it. And he's like, yeah, really? I'm in. Let's go. So he jumps back in and then gets back over to me, and he gets out, and it's my turn, and my co-pilot gets back in, and we have maybe 30 miles to go, and all of us have been up the whole time. I'm jazzed. I'm like, no way, we're going to make it. We're finishing. There's no way we're not
You're
finishing.
on your sip of Red Bull?
Yeah, I'm on my one sip of Red Bull. I don't do caffeine, so I took my one sip of Red Bull, and I'm ready to go. I'm like, there's nothing stopping me from finishing. I don't care if I have to roll the wheel down the hill, but I'm finishing with the tire or something. And so, I'm over there, and next thing my co-pilot, hey, you okay? And everyone's like, you okay? I didn't even realize it, but he kept falling asleep on me. He's like, sorry, but I kept falling asleep on you. I couldn't do it. So,
Falling
You know what I
asleep.
think?
That's insane.
You know what I think would be super cool is to start like a show series. You know how they have all these like series of shows like Survivor.
Oh, yeah.
But do Survivor for Baja.
Baja, yeah. I was thinking the same thing with these stories.
Oh yeah, this would be so entertaining.
it'd be
for
great
any-
if they pick a couple teams.
Yeah,
you know.
and it'd be great for anyone
Follow
that
them
wants
through.
to be a
Survivor.
racer.
Yeah.
Like National Geographic,
Yeah.
if you're listening, pick it up.
Yeah.
Like do
Yeah.
something.
Mad
because-
TV, give us a call.
Yeah, have someone ride in
Because
there's the third seat in the
It's
truck, right?
interesting.
Navigator
and there's
and
footage
filmer.
of this. You know what I mean? There's footage of these race teams that don't have millions of dollars backing
Right.
them, and a chase helicopter that's going to send 14 guys down, drop 14 guys off a ladder out of a helicopter to lift the vehicle.
Well,
out.
now that we have we have Starlinks on every
Yeah.
vehicle,
Yeah.
every chase vehicle, and you got the star mount systems with the live cameras in there. You can
Yeah.
really do a good
Yeah, it would
production.
be-
you
It'd be
could really turn it
rad
out.
if someone picked that up and just a day in the life of a
Baja,
racer
yeah.
without 35 inches of wheel travel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I
Bolt
got
on
it
parts.
from the desk job to the desert.
Yeah.
There's a lot
Because it's
to,
more
lot
of
there.
everyone just thinks you're in a car the whole time and you're putting along. No, this is an adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This is an absolute adventure. You have no idea. You might hit a cow and have steaks on the way.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there's so much involved.
Well,
Yeah.
that's
Yep.
the thing. I mean, I would check our Instagram page because we've got a lot of postings up from all the races that we've just recently finished with Nora, and you winning the Baja 500. So, and there's some of these stories posted up there, and it is survival. You look at some of the things that have been posted up there, some of the things that a racer has to do
How
to
dangerous
finish
it is.
the race.
I mean,
yeah.
you break down on the course, and you're trying to hand
It's
pull your
difficult.
vehicle off the course so it doesn't get grenaded by a $1 million trophy truck that's coming.
Who's in last place?
Who's at 110 miles an hour through a whoop section?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just
Crazy.
I mean, if a
That would
trophy
be
truck's
such-
behind you, he's in last place. He should just be chilling.
Yeah, it's tough. You got to watch out for them, though. I mean, they'll swipe you out. You got to be careful. You really got to keep an eye
That's low.
on your rear
It's
for
dangerous.
sure.
Wow.
Mexico is dangerous.
Because it's
Yeah.
dusty, they don't know that you're going a little bit slower. They think they're going to run right back in another trophy truck, and it's on.
Just
and
give
they're
you a
gonna,
little bump and get you out of the way and continue on at 150.
It's really nice that they have the Stella system in the car where you actually press a button if you get close to someone's bumper. You see someone in front of you, it lets them know in the other car that someone's behind you. There's an
Right.
OK pass button in your car. There's a no
Wow.
go. There's an emergency broke down button. So if someone's broken down in the middle of the road, this thing starts lighting up with the red triangle, beep, 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 beep,
Yep.
beep, and we can hear it in the helmets and everything.
It's not like the
loud.
old days
And
where
in
they
the
just come
90s,
up
that
and
was
crash
pre-
into the back of
in
you.
the
Yeah.
90s, that
Yeah,
was pre-run bumper.
Yeah,
No.
exactly. Little tap. Oops. Sorry, you're in
Yeah,
the next lane.
they used to have a lot of bumper tricks back in the day
Yeah,
with some
but
angle
also,
iron and stuff.
To be fair, it was like everything progresses over time, right? These courses, like you had factory beams on a Bronco with 4 Rancho shocks in the front of it, but you were on 33s. The course just didn't get dug out because it didn't have 1,000 horsepower with 42s.
Well, that's what I was
You
going
know?
to say is back when it started, the terrain was the equalizer, right?
Well, back when it started, there was no course, right?
Yeah, the terrain
Yeah,
made
no, it
every
wasn't.
man running the race equal. The cars were fairly equal, and it was all about the man versus the desert, right? No one had all this whacked out equipment. Well, very quickly, the equipment started getting better and better and better, and the challenge started getting less and less and less, and now it's more about time, not just finishing, right?
Yeah, there's
You were
time,
excited,
VCPs,
yeah,
and
just
you have to make this
finish.
corner
Yeah.
within 20 feet of it, or
Yeah.
else you lose 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It's gotten pretty dicey, and they don't take the easy road.
Yeah,
It's
I like
always the
one
easy
thing that
road.
you said earlier in our conversation that we didn't hit on that I really think is cool is that the heat in the race that you just won was the great equalizer. You said the $1 million trucks also overheated, and everybody has to deal with this one factor. And I think, okay, now the regular guy has a chance again, right? Because the heat doesn't pick just one car to break down.
Yeah, I mean, Bryce Menzies, the top dog is the cooling fans, the motor on the cooling fans.
Yeah.
Those trophy trucks replace the cooling fan motors every race because they do build up sand. The sand sucks into them with the fan and stuff.
Right.
They get a little gunked up, and we replace them, not as much, but we do have to. I think I got a couple ones that don't sound good right now from that last sand wash,
Yeah.
but they had a problem. A lot of the Mason trucks had problems, and they had to stop. They had to slow down.
So there was a chance for the normal guy on a stock suspension.
Someone
to get out
got
there.
lucky this last race. A couple of guys got lucky that, you can do all the prep and spend all the money in the world and have a $2 problem.
Yep.
It's so
a fuse
frustrating.
Or a fan. Yep.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I think that people don't understand, like, you think of Baja racing that you're going fast on these smooth roads, but then you hear the real stories, like,
We have
there's gnarly.
There's custom-made tools in our tool bags just to get things off in tight spots.
Oh, yeah.
We carry every little widget. Little
Four
part.
of everything. Yeah.
The little extra brake bleeders, just in case we lose the brakes, or a rock hits one of the the bleeder valves. And there's so much little stuff that we have. We have caps and plugs and stuff in case something falls apart.
Tires, oil, every single piece.
Quick connects. Push locks so that we can cut a hose and fuse it back together without, and get back in there. If we do slice a hose, we got all kinds of stuff. Of course, we got zip ties, duct tape, and
10 pounds of zip ties and 4 rolls of
cement
something
stuff.
else to include in that TV series is what your truck was like when it started the race versus what held it together when it
how it
the race.
finished. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of MacGyver stuff out there.
Yeah.
It's a lot
I
of
think
ingenuity.
that's the key to finishing too, is having that. And you said you kind of grew up with that mentality with your father. You learned all that stuff early, and then being a kid playing around down in Baja and surfing and all that, and they taught you how to fix your vehicle with parts you found in a junkyard.
Yeah, that erector set went a
all
long way for
part
me.
of it. Yeah,
Erector set and Lincoln Longs have paid off.
That's so much a part of being successful in that race.
Legos are great too.
Exactly.
You can make a lot of cool cars with the Legos, and even the Lego thing has a Ferrari experience that was pretty cool over here. Legoland over in Carlsbad. I know my daughter likes that little setup, and we spent some time there.
So not only is Justin's camber suspension like production parts that you can buy off the shelf, so are his shocks.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one sitting right there.
That's one thing that we pride ourselves with Bilstein is we don't use any better piston, any better internal material on a race shock than we do on a production shock.
Yep.
We don't break it down by series like, a recreational series and a race series. The same quality components go into Justin shocks that go into a shock you would buy off the shelf.
Yeah. It's great knowing that these quality parts hold up in a race as nasty and as brutal as the Baja 1000 and the other ones down there. But to have that knowledge and know that your equipment's not going to fail you out on any adventure, whether it's business, personal, or pleasure, it's amazing to have such a great product and to know that it's going to get you there and back.
I think the relationship that I just kind of clicked on in my head while we were sitting here talking is like, we support you as a sponsored racer. You support us by keeping the electricity on in our building. I think it's really kind of a cool relationship.
Thanks to Eichler Electric and everyone I work with over there.
Yeah.
We got a great crew over there. There are a lot of great engineering. We do a lot of manufacturing on our own over there to build lab spaces and other things and meet our clients' needs. And it's work hard, play hard is definitely our motto.
It's been a great relationship over all the years of racing. When I first met you, I was the guy writing your orders, and we got to know each other pretty well. And
a lot of service cards.
Exactly.
When I
Working
met
on all that
you,
stuff.
we didn't have gray hair.
Yeah.
I know it definitely.
Like-
I had hair back
probably
then.
2001 or something. I've been
Yeah.
in the industry for quite a while, and Yeah, it's been.
Yeah, I'm
crazy.
looking. I was just reflecting that we were in 2013. We were at the Mint 400 together, and it'd be fun to revisit that one again. Maybe we've got an eyeball on the Mint 400 potentially next year.
Justin, it was great having you here, man.
Yes,
Oh,
thank
it's
you
always-
so
always
much.
exciting.
And, you know, everyone always sees the truck and you in a helmet, so you look a little different.
Yeah,
so it's
yeah,
good that they see
just the eyes and the
actually who
nose.
You are,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we do a little Facebook Live stuff here and there, and I try to get out there and engage with everyone. I think that really helps. Getting a face in front of a product is good, and exposing it that way, and bringing it out and to show and tell. We don't hide this thing. We don't try to keep people away from it. It's open. Come up, check it out. Come ask some questions.
Thanks for coming out and sharing the stories. I mean, I think that like Shane said, I don't think people really have a grasp on how difficult this thing is for the vehicle and the people.
Yeah, maybe we could do some more on location stuff in the next couple race years. That'd be kind of fun, and see if we can do some Bilstein Live.
Sounds good.
Awesome. And if anyone's interested in 9200 coilovers, bypasses, bump stops, whatever you guys are interested in, that we have many distributors out in local and nationwide that can handle that for you. Down South Motorsports, Wheel Every Weekend, Shock Surplus. You can call us direct, email us direct. We can send you to a distributor that will get you all taken care of, that can service, revalve, do whatever you want to the shocks. So we're plentiful.
And don't forget all those UTV racers out there too.
Yeah,
we
exactly.
can take care of them with a new Blackhawk.
Yeah, the new UTV
shocks.
stuff is awesome.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
Awesome ride. Definitely check them out. Some of those factory vehicles don't have what they need.
Yeah.
And we do. Bilstein's got it.
Yeah, Doug Mittag, blistering fast. Cade Rod's on.
Cade Rod is on off-the-shelf Bilstein race shocks.
Yes.
And he just won the last
He just
two
won his last two
KOH
races. Yeah.
or Ultra 4 races in 4400.
Yep.
And I'm looking forward to next year at KOH to see what he can do.
Yes, we all are. Well,
Jimmy,
thanks again.
Jimmy's 4x4, listen to that. We need a first place win at
Exactly.
KOH 2025.
Thanks again, Justin. And thanks
thanks.
again for all of you guys watching and listening to us. Put your comments and anything else you want to ask us about down there in the section below, and we'll see
And
you
if you
next
want to buy
time.
Justin's truck, it's $1 million.
Yeah, exactly. He'll never sell it. It's his high school rig.
Someone told me everything's for sale. But,
Yeah.
such is life. But, we'll move forward, and we're really excited with the Bilstein package, and we're heading into the Baja 400 and the Baja 1000. So let's do this, team.
Yep.
All right.
All right.
Thanks again. We'll see y'all later.